what do you know about the Wars of the Roses? Is it proper to see it as a 15th century civil conflict, or something worse? The Wars of the Roses, a series of dynastic civil wars in 15th century England, are symbolized by the emblems of the two rival factions within the House of Plantagenet, the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of Lancaster. For over 3 decades, these factions vied for control of the English throne, resulting in widespread bloodshed among the great families of England, the deaths of princes and kings, and a series of battles that ultimately culminated in the Battle of Bosworth Field. It was here that Henry Tudor claimed the blood-stained crown of England, establishing a new, strong dynasty that would emerge from the chaos of the Wars of the Roses. This essay explores the historical context, the key battles, the significant figures, and the lasting impact of the Wars of the Roses on English society and governance. Historical context and origins. The roots of the Wars of the Roses can be traced back to the 14th century, particularly during the latter stages of the Hundred Years' War between England and France. This protracted conflict, which began in 1337 under the reign of Edward III, was not only a struggle for territorial control but also a contest over the legitimate claim to the French throne. The war exacerbated existing tensions within the English nobility and strained the kingdom's finances. The English monarchy's position as one of France's chief landholders was increasingly threatened by the strengthening French monarchy, which sought to consolidate its power and territory. The Hundred Years' War and dynastic claims. The Hundred Years' War left England financially and politically weakened. The loss of key territories in France, including Normandy and Gascony, diminished English prestige and influence on the continent. Moreover, the war's enormous cost led to increased taxation and economic hardship, fueling discontent among the populace and nobility alike. The weakening of English holdings in France also heightened the importance of securing a stable and uncontested succession to the English throne. The House of Plantagenet, which ruled England from the mid-12th century, was divided into 2 main branches: the Lancastrians, who were descended from John of Gaunt, Edward III's third son, and the Yorkists, who traced their lineage through Edward's second son, Lionel of Antwerp. The Lancastrian line, established by Henry IV in 1399, was perceived by many as having a weaker claim to the throne compared to the Yorkists, whose lineage was more directly connected to Edward III. The weakness of Henry VI. Henry VI's reign was characterized by weak leadership and political instability. Ascending the throne as an infant following his father's death, Henry was ill-prepared for the challenges of kingship. His bouts of mental illness and the consequent power vacuum allowed for the rise of powerful nobles who effectively controlled the kingdom. The Duke of Gloucester and the Bishop of Winchester were 2 such figures whose rivalry and differing visions for the country exacerbated the instability. Henry's marriage to Margaret of Anjou in 1445 further complicated matters. Margaret was a strong-willed and politically astute queen, but her influence alienated many nobles, particularly those who were already wary of the perceived dominance of the Lancastrian faction. The Queen's efforts to secure the succession for her son, Edward, Prince of Wales, often put her at odds with the powerful Yorkist faction led by Richard, Duke of York. The precipitating events. The internal strife within England was further compounded by the loss of English territories in France, a result of the waning phases of the Hundred Years' War. The defeat at the Battle of Castillon in 1453, which saw the final loss of Gascony, marked the end of English ambitions in France. The military failures were attributed to poor leadership and internal divisions, particularly the rivalry between the Duke of Somerset and the Duke of York. Somerset's mismanagement of the war efforts and his subsequent influence over Henry VI's government led to widespread dissatisfaction among the nobility. The return of Richard, Duke of York, from his governorship in Ireland was a critical moment. York was a capable military leader and administrator with a strong claim to the throne. His return to England in 1450 coincided with the Cade Rebellion, a popular uprising led by Jack Cade, which highlighted widespread grievances against Henry VI's government. The rebellion was driven by issues such as corruption, mismanagement, and the economic burden of ongoing conflicts. Although the rebellion was eventually quashed, It exposed the deep-seated dissatisfaction within English society and foreshadowed the more organized noble conflicts to come. The outbreak of the wars. The first significant battle of the Wars of the Roses occurred at St. Albans in 1455. Richard, Duke of York, supported by his allies, including the powerful Neville family, sought to eliminate his rivals and assert his influence over the king. The Yorkist victory led to the capture of Henry VI and the death of key Lancastrian leaders, including the Duke of Somerset. This battle marked the beginning of a protracted struggle for control of the English crown. Following his victory at St. Albans, Richard, Duke of York, was appointed protector of the realm during Henry VI's incapacitation. His governance aimed at reforming the administration and curbing the influence of the Queen's faction. However, his position was precarious, with Queen Margaret and her supporters continually seeking to undermine his authority and restore full Lancastrian control. The conflict intensified with the Battle of Northampton in 1460, where the Yorkists captured Henry VI once more. The subsequent Act of Accord recognized Richard, Duke of York, as the heir to the throne, bypassing Prince Edward. This decision was unacceptable to Queen Margaret, who continued to rally Lancastrian forces. The death of Richard, Duke of York, at the Battle of Wakefield in December 1460 was a significant setback for the Yorkists. However, his son Edward continued the struggle, securing a decisive victory at the Battle of Towton in 1461. Edward's coronation as Edward IV marked a significant shift in power, establishing a Yorkist monarchy. However, internal dissent, particularly from Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, led to further instability. The ascendancy and decline of Yorkist power. The early years of Edward IV's reign were marked by efforts to consolidate Yorkist power. Edward sought to stabilize the kingdom by restoring law and order, reforming the administration, and strengthening the monarchy's financial base. He also worked to secure the loyalty of the nobility by rewarding his supporters and curbing the influence of potential rivals. However, the internal divisions within the Yorkist camp, particularly the ambitions of Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, posed significant challenges. Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, was instrumental in Edward IV's rise to power but became increasingly disillusioned with Edward's rule. Warwick's opposition was fueled by Edward's marriage to Elizabeth Woodville, a commoner with a large and ambitious family, which Warwick viewed as a threat to his influence. The rift between Edward and Warwick culminated in the latter's defection to the Lancastrian cause, leading to a brief restoration of Henry VI in 1470, known as the Readeption. The Readeption was short-lived, as Edward IV quickly regained control with the support of key nobles, including his brother Richard, Duke of Gloucester. The decisive battles of Barnet and Tewkesbury in 1471 saw the deaths of Warwick and Henry VI's son, Prince Edward, effectively ending the Lancastrian cause. Henry VI himself was murdered shortly thereafter, likely on Edward IV's orders, to eliminate any remaining threats to the Yorkist throne. The Yorkist consolidation and the rise of Richard III. With the Lancastrian threat diminished, Edward IV focused on consolidating his rule. He implemented financial reforms, improved the administration of justice, and sought to maintain peace within the nobility. However, the internal Yorkist conflicts, particularly involving his brothers George, Duke of Clarence, and Richard, Duke of Gloucester, created instability. Clarence's eventual execution in 1478 for treason highlighted the ongoing factionalism within the Yorkist camp. The sudden death of Edward IV in 1483 precipitated a succession crisis. His son, Edward V, was only 12 years old, leading to the appointment of Richard, Duke of Gloucester, as protector. Richard quickly moved to consolidate his power, declaring his nephews illegitimate and taking the throne as Richard III. The mysterious disappearance of the young princes, known as the Princes in the Tower, cast a shadow over Richard's reign and contributed to his portrayal as a usurper and tyrant in subsequent historical accounts. The rise of the Tudors and the Battle of Bosworth. Richard III's rule faced significant opposition, culminating in the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. Henry Tudor, a distant Lancastrian claimant with a tenuous but legitimate claim to the throne, raised an army and invaded England. Richard III was defeated and killed in the battle, ending the Plantagenet dynasty and marking the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. Henry Tudor's victory was not merely a dynastic triumph, but also a political and symbolic turning point, as it marked the end of decades of civil war and the beginning of a new era in English history. Henry VII's reign focused on consolidating power, restoring financial stability, and reducing the influence of the overmighty nobility. His marriage to Elizabeth of York, Edward IV's daughter, symbolically united the warring factions, strengthening the Tudor claim to the throne and ending the dynastic conflicts that had plagued England for decades. Henry VII's policies, including the establishment of the Court of Star Chamber and the use of attainders to control the nobility, laid the foundation for a strong and centralized monarchy. The legacy of the Wars of the Roses. The Wars of the Roses significantly altered the English political landscape. The conflict led to the decline of feudalism and the rise of a more centralized state. The power of the nobility was curtailed, and the monarchy emerged stronger and more centralized. The wars also had a profound impact on the English aristocracy, with many noble families being decimated or displaced, and a new generation of leaders emerging under the Tudor regime. Culturally, the Wars of the Roses have left a lasting legacy. The conflict has been immortalized in literature and popular culture, notably in the works of William Shakespeare, who dramatized the events in his history plays. The wars are often depicted as a period of noble heroism, tragic conflict, and political intrigue, contributing to their enduring fascination in popular culture. The Wars of the Roses also had a significant impact on English governance. The need for strong, centralized authority to prevent further internal conflict led to the development of new administrative practices and legal frameworks. The Tudor monarchs, beginning with Henry VII, implemented policies that strengthened the monarchy's control over the nobility and reduced the potential for rebellion. This centralization of power laid the groundwork for the modern British state and influenced the development of constitutional monarchy. Conclusion. The Wars of the Roses were a defining period in English history, marked by dynastic struggles, political intrigue, and significant social change. The conflict's resolution with the rise of the Tudor dynasty brought about a new era in English governance and society, ending a turbulent period of civil war and ushering in a time of relative peace and stability. The Tudor dynasty, with its emphasis on strong centralized authority, helped to stabilize the realm and reduce the influence of the nobility. The Tudor period also saw significant developments in governance, law, and administration, setting the stage for the later evolution of the British constitutional system. In conclusion, the Wars of the Roses were a complex and multifaceted conflict that had profound and lasting effects on England. The wars were a pivotal moment in the country's history, shaping its political and social structures and leaving a rich legacy in literature and culture. As such, they remain a subject of enduring interest and study, offering valuable insights into the dynamics of power, conflict, and governance in medieval England. Thanks for listening. Like and comment, and please subscribe to travel back in time with us to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.